Have you ever thought about transitioning out of working for somebody else and into working for yourself and owning your own business or investing in real estate? Well, this is the episode for you. Hey there, dreamers and doers. Welcome to the Founder's Journey. I'm Jonathan Killam. In this episode, I interview Juztin Brown. Juztin is the CEO of Three Hills Real Estate Service, which is the brokerage where I hold my real estate license. Juztin also happens to be a Masonic brother of mine. Juztin tells a great story about how he got into the real estate game and initially fell into the guru trap. Juztin shares the ups and downs through his journey and gives a lot of great insights. This is definitely a great episode for anyone who might be interested in getting into the real estate game. Hey, real quick before we get started, if you're into helping out business owners and content creators, go ahead and hit the subscribe button for me and like this video. It'll cost you absolutely nothing and it'll mean the world to me. Thank you so much. Anyways, without further ado, let's dive in. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I got my brother here, Juztin Brown, who's also my broker in the real estate brokerage that I am a part of. And welcome, Juztin. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. I'm excited that you reached out and look forward to having a good conversation with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you have a lot of knowledge. I know this is going to be a great episode. So let's just dive right into it and tell our audience about yourself and where you came from and your journey.
Yeah, I mean, if you didn't know me, my name is Juztin Brown, founder and CEO of Three Hills Real Estate Service. And, I'm just a boy from Revere, just from north of Boston, and very passionate about self-development and growth and team building, which has led me down this interesting journey mixed with my passions in real estate that we just keep pushing every day, and that's something that I just love to do. So I'm really just here to do my best every day. A gentleman like you asked me to jump on the camera and have a conversation, and that's the type of things I want to do.
Awesome. So like myself, you've got humble beginnings. So tell us a little bit more about that. I know you're kind of into tattooing for a while, right?
Yeah, in a previous lifetime, I was a body piercer. That's actually, I studied and learned a lot of real estate in the back of the tattoo shop, believe it or not, which is a little unique. I don't think you see that very often, at least. So when we began, really, I got a ticket one day. My mother got us tickets to go to this free seminar. The guy from Flipped His House on TV is giving a seminar to teach people how to flip properties. And, I ate it up. And what you learned is you go to this free event and then they sell you on like a 3-day weekend. And then they sell you on like a cross-country trip. And before you knew it, we were all wrapped up in these seminar courses and all that type of stuff. And it was just kind of amazing. So back then I was a full-time body piercer. So I would find myself studying and all the things in my downtime in the back of the tattoo shop. And it used to be like the laugh of the shop. Everyone would be like, oh, Justin's going to be a real estate mongrel someday or whatever. But, the funny thing is all those guys own properties now of their own. So it's been a great time.
So that must have been an expensive education. I know the gurus, they like to dig into people's pockets. Tell us a little bit about that.
That was one of the first things I learned. Before I'd ever touched a property, I was probably 30 grand in debt. And, for me, that was, I was stacking away these white envelopes. Every time I got $2,000, I'd put in a white envelope and I'd seal it up when I was body piercing. And when I stumbled upon these seminars and decided to get involved with them, I think I probably folded out 7 or 8 of those envelopes to pay for the education. I put the rest on my credit card, which is a sick trick that I learned these seminar programs do. Day 1, day 2, they get you all hyped up of all this potential that you can do. And they start coaching you to call your credit card companies and expand your credit card limits and all that type of stuff right before they drop the bomb on you the next day and get you excited to buy these seminars. So this was a long time ago. This was 2010, 14 years ago. I was 24 myself. And I drank the Kool-Aid, It wasn't until I was under this pressure of having spent all my real money that I'd earned $30 at a time, as well as doubled up on credit card debt to go all in, that I kind of realized the seminar game and what they were doing to us, which was unfortunate. But at the same point, it was a blessing because that's what put me under pressure and allowed me to not really be able to entertain the idea of giving up or quitting when there were certainly times that I wanted to, early on. Our first flip, we actually ended up losing a lot of money and walking away from it. And I think that we didn't know that we were supposed to quit at the time. I just think we didn't really see that as much of an opportunity, but that's probably the difference in our career because most people, I think, would have walked away at the time, licked their wounds, sitting in debt, this whole thing didn't work. And that might have been our secret potion. If we just didn't give up, we stuck with it. And eventually, you can only be wrong so many times before you're right.
So where was it that you figured out that this was kind of like a guru trap? And then where did the rubber meet the road? So how did you have that transition from the training to like, all right, now I'm actually doing this thing, and then getting your first deal?
Yeah, what a journey. So it was probably about 2.5 years between the time that I had started and when I had actually maybe cashed my first physical check. For me, the rude awakening was when I had come back from the seminars and I was traveling. I had created just a couple promo videos myself, fancy editing software, and said, hey, follow me on my real estate journey. And what happened was the seminar company that I was following, when I released that video, they actually removed me from all their platforms. So one of the big catches or the big glimpses to this program is you're supposed to get into this special Facebook group where all the other students are, where everyone would be collaborating. You get private investors that way and all that stuff. And when they saw that I had a little bit of a social media presence myself, they completely snuffed me out of the program. They took away my access to go to future seminars, which I was supposed to be entitled to do. And this is all like led to class action lawsuits, stuff like that. So when I was removed from the community, it had kind of clicked on me what I had just participated in and where I had gone. And it's such a catch-22 because I'm so grateful for the education that I got there. It was just enough to get me going. At the same point, of course, in hindsight, I've learned that information, is available through many different avenues and sources, So, that's kind of fueled my career because in a lot of ways, I got a bone to pick with those gurus. In a lot of ways, I want to grow up to be something better to where I could help our team and gather people, rally people behind us without taking them to the cleaners and, keeping the growth and the development the main thing rather than, being like a money grab. So that was quite a harsh reality for me. They were supposed to be there to help me through my first flip, and they were never there when I needed the help or the guidance. So they kind of just had me out in the real world. I had borrowed some money from somebody. I had somebody else doing the contractor work pro bono, and the whole thing kind of fell apart. It had a major effect. So in hindsight, licking my wounds and moving through that process, you develop a certain level of resolve, but you also develop a certain amount of confidence. I think that in my first real estate deal, which I eventually lost to foreclosure to my investor, I had learned some things about control. And maybe early on, I didn't believe in myself, so I relied on everybody else. And, our investor had opinions, and I gave his opinions the heaviest credit, and we went with, what he thought should be done. Same with our contractor. And I think that at the end of the day, I learned that I had to learn to trust myself because there were some things there that I had known better, I could have done better, wish that I had done. And that was the biggest lesson I learned through the first deal was, in the future, when I put myself on the line, I'm also going to put myself accountable. I'm going to hold I'm going to hold myself accountable for my own decision making and, for my own processes, because I don't mind losing. But when I lose, I want it to be my fault, and that was something that was hard for this, young 24-year-old guy to find the confidence the first time around. Because the idea of somebody loaning us $100,000 to buy a property was just groundbreaking at the time, from where we had come from and, what we had looked to accomplish. So it was real hard for me to push back and say no at first. And that was probably the biggest lesson right there is learn to take control of my own, destiny and my own deals as they came, because at the end of the day, it was all going to fall on my shoulders anyways. And if I was going to eat it, I might as well dish it too. But that had all transposed over some time. And when we finally got ourselves out of the storm over like our first deal, and I continued on with educating myself through other avenues and through other people, I started to get a breakthrough just through relationships. I basically developed a great relationship with a doctor that was out in California, and he was looking to invest in real estate. He had a lot of money, but he didn't have a lot of time. I had a lot of time and energy. So we were like a great marriage there. So we ended up, buying another property. I bought a property here in my local market using his money, and we flipped that property. And then we virtually wholesaled the same doctor a few properties out in Georgia. And all this kind of came to a head at once where we finally sold this first flip for a profit. And we had a couple wholesale deals for profits, kind of all land at once. And that was just like the spark. Once I had seen that it was real and that we can make money and we can do this, that must have been rocket fuel, because from there on out, I don't know we've ever gone a 30-day period without closing some sort of transaction and some sort of deal, But that was a good solid 2.5 years of a lot of effort, a lot of studying, late nights on the computer, thinking you're being productive, but maybe not, before finally things clicked for us.
Yeah, so, sometimes it takes years upon years of knowledge building before you have the confidence and the lingo and to actually get into it. So I get it. How did you go from real estate investor in kind of the creative area to now having your own brokerage though and doing conventional real estate?
Sure. What a story. And I think what we do is anything but conventional. But yeah, so now I had started flipping. I had finished one. I had finished a second one. I was in my third one and decided to make a transition. I decided to leave the body piercing and the tattoo industry and focus on real estate full time. And then in doing that, I learned further lessons. It's the highs and the lows. When you flip a property and you make, a couple $1,000s, you feel great. But then you realize you're 6, 8, 12 weeks maybe from your next flip, if you're lucky. And it's kind of like the highs and lows. So I kind of had this epitome that, hey, I wasn't going to get ahead relying on what we were doing at the scale we were doing it. So I wanted to get more of a consistent income coming at the same time in real estate. And what I did is I went and got a job as a property manager for a local investor that had, a couple hundred apartments of his own. And he had hired me to be his main property manager. And that became my gig that I was working full-time, 40 plus hours a week for the next couple of years. And my idea, I think, when I got the job was that I would be able to work this property management, learn more about the buildings and the rental side of real estate, at the same time as flipping some other properties. And I got my real estate license right around the same time too. Or I had already had my real estate license, but same time period. So from there, I came to this next epiphany, which was, hey, I was spending too much time as a property manager and not enough chasing my own dreams now as an investor and just building my own life. So I sat my boss at the time down one day and said, hey, we're 3 years into this, which was our 3 to 5 year plan. And I'd like to make my next 3 to 5 year plan so that we can consider growing together rather than growing apart. And there's some turmoil back and forth. We really have to go back and forth with that. But as a result of that conversation was the birth of Three Hills. And what we had determined is that from a property management perspective, we were actually very proficient. We had a great crew, team, vehicles, tools, software, everything you needed to run a proficient property management operation. But we were only doing it in-house at the time for this one gentleman's properties. And, we actually had a neighbor walk in one day and ask if we would manage their condo. And it was like this little light bulb. I said, hey, the market needs us. Landlords right here in our neighborhood aren't able to maintain their buildings the way that we are. And we know that because we get the feedback all the time, right? The city says we're the best, all this other stuff. So I had pitched that to this gentleman that we should consider starting a new company and offering these same services that we have to the third part. Part of that negotiation, that process led to determining that I would go and get my broker's license so that we could take our real estate inside. And that was also the birth of where the name Three Hills Real Estate Service came from. because the three hills represented the property management, the building repairs and maintenance, as well as the real estate brokerage. Those are kind of our three areas that we all pulled in together. So we had actually hired a third-party marketing company to present different brand names and companies to us, and they presented Three Hills, but more for the connection to Boston. I think they liked like Beacon Hill, Bunker Hills, like the Three Hills of Boston area. But I immediately kind of dismissed that. I said, but you know what? I like it for this purpose. So we ended up building our brand around those three different areas of service. And at the time that we had launched this new company is when I became a real estate broker. And obviously our initial, our whole brokerage has stemmed off of that over time, just as we've grown now. It was 7 or 8 years ago. So
awesome. I actually didn't even know that about the whole name. That's pretty cool.
You know what? While I got your attention on a brand name, I want to bring one more point to it. All right.
Sure.
Most common thing is, so we're Three Hills Real Estate Service. Some people will call us services. And, that's singular. And the reason why it's singular is because of the customer service. To us, the big thing is customer service wakes me up. So since we're talking about the brand and the initiation of Three Hills, there's a reason why the word is service and not services. So although we provide plenty of services, the idea has always been to connect to the people we connect, provide them, an earnest service.
Mm-hmm. It always starts with the customer.
In our minds, it does.
So yeah, you started in Massachusetts, right? And now you're in some more states. Tell me a little bit about that.
That's right. Yeah, our company started in Chelsea, Massachusetts. I was licensed in Massachusetts first, but over time, I now live in southern New Hampshire. So naturally, I got my license here in New Hampshire, expanding our brokerage. We're also now in Maine. So we're 3 states: Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Maine, with more to come. We've got several other states on our radars here where we're going to be expanding our brokerage over time. It is our goal to build a national brand.
Very nice. Very nice. So you had a partner at some point here, but then there must have been some kind of a separation.
I had 3 partners. Yeah. So when I sat my boss down, and we started discussing this, potential business plan that I had or whatnot, I had approached, who was our office admin at the time, our office manager, about joining this venture. And in my mind, I really felt like I knew that the heaviest weight of our business plan was going to fall on the shoulders of this individual. So I'm a big believer in the mastermind principle, where in order to get good cooperation with people, you really need equal partners and whatnot. So I put this person into our business plan as an equal ownership partner, because I wanted them to be committed, and I knew that challenges were going to come ahead, and I wanted to make sure that we really had them invested in that because they were going to be a very critical piece. So that was our second partner. And then we also had a business, or my boss at the time had hired like a business advisor, gentleman, a very smart individual. Matter of fact, he was the chief engineer of the Apollo spacesuit, which is essentially life support as we know it today. So what I learned through working with this gentleman is, they created the astronaut spacesuit, the original. And then by the time that we were landing on the moon, he had already taken that technology and founded Vanguard Medical with it, modern day life support. So in essence, this gentleman is the father of life support. He had sold Vanguard Medical after a couple of years. This was back in the 60s. And since then he had become, business advisor. So at the time he was a hired advisor for my boss, and we invited him in as part of our company, in an advisory role. So he would meet in our board meetings we would have, and he would help us make decisions and guided us through the development of our business plan and some really hard decisions that had to be made over the course of years. So kind of the 4 of us had teamed up. It was me and our office admin previously that were running the operation, and my old boss and his partner there were part of our advisory board, in a non-operating role. So that relationship was really fruitful for a while, because we all had something to bring to the table that the others didn't have. But we had just gone to a point in the business where it was clear that this was my baby. This was the passion that I was chasing and all of that stuff. So we had come to a point after a couple of years where we had discussed, the opportunity where the business had kind of paid back its original debts. We had a lot of credit to begin, and we had gotten all that paid back and everything. And the opportunity was there to buy out the partners. And, so I approached them about that, and they were all very, very receptive of it at the time. So, I made the move. I took 100% ownership at the time. This was now about 4 years ago. And because I think that's what it was always supposed to be. I think that at the end of the day, this was an opportunity for me. And I think the world just works out the way it's supposed to sometimes.
So it sounds like you had a clean exit and nobody got their feelings hurt, and you still got some friends out of the deal?
We're friends. We're definitely all still friends. Have there been hurt feelings along the way? I think that partnerships are very complex, and they can have their ebbs and flows, certainly. And I think that we learn a lot about ourselves, the way that we work through other people, and even more so in hindsight. And, so long story short, yes, we're all friends. I've texted with these partners probably within the last couple of days. So her name was Iris, our office admin, who became our COO, our chief operating officer. And just a couple of days ago, she sent me a text message just reminiscing about actually some trouble we had gotten into, out in the field, and how we masterfully got away from it. I think she actually put a blog out on the internet. We're definitely friendly, but that relationship and all those relationships there have had different strains over the times, no doubt about it. Some of the biggest lessons we learned, or I've learned personally, has been through managing those relationships and the different struggles, and how we handled them then compared to how we might handle them next time. Advice we learned along the way from our other business partners and all that type of stuff. We could probably write a whole book.
So you were saying we could probably write a whole book, and that could lead into our next area of discussion. Because isn't that something that you might be doing there, Juztin?
Oh, you're going to spill the beans. So we have a booking process. It is coming. It's coming very soon, actually, although it's been a very long time in the making. This book is probably about 4 years in process. But we're expecting to be complete by the end of this year. Because what happens is, as we get through it, we determine, hey, we almost we've rewritten the thing. We're on the third time now. So that book is Running Rentals. And Running Rentals is going to be our story about how we came in to become Three Hills, but also all the lessons that we had learned through that period. So this book is meant to be educational, and is going to show people the ins and outs of actually the decisions we make and what process we go through in order to make decisions when it comes to running rentals. And it's meant to be a guide for property managers, but really the self-owner landlords, the people that are managing their own buildings. It's almost like a blueprint on how do you handle all these different categories of managing your rental buildings, from rentals to maintenance to financing, and just kind of everything in between. And right down to dealing with the relationships between the tenants or owners or investors and partners, because, most people don't own their apartment buildings all by themselves, at least people that are really growing those partnerships and stuff. So all of those lessons that we've learned here through building the company and having partnerships, they're all coming to life and being told in this book. And there's a little bit of drama, but there's a whole lot of it.
Well, when the book comes out, it's definitely getting dropped. I'll edit the description on this video, and I'll make sure it gets tagged in there. And we should also probably just do a whole nother video and talking about your book. Yeah, I think that'd be a great idea. So for people that are just starting out in real estate, would you have any advice for them, for people that are maybe thinking about getting into investing?
Yeah, so if you're getting into investing, I think the idea is to surround yourself with some competent people. Make sure that you have a pretty good understanding of what you're looking to accomplish. but also understand that things are never going to go perfect. You're going to have ups and downs, and there'll be days that you want to quit, and then there'll be days where you feel like you're on top of the world. And it always sounds good. We always have a plan, but you got to be able to get up and execute the plan and do things that you don't know whether or not they'll ever pan out for you. And that's where I find most people fall off, is they come in and they get all rah-rahs, and they're all excited, but when they're home alone in their own place, they don't just do the things. And I've seen local gurus here, other brokers in our market that sell training to people. I've sat down with them at breakfast, and they say, listen, this person pays $50,000 to learn with me, but then they don't do the work. And, so from a leader's perspective, it's very hard, obviously, when you're trying to give this information, but when people don't follow up on it, it's a reflection, right? So what I've learned is it's not for everybody. And then those that it is for, they each have their own strengths and weaknesses. So getting into it, I would say that the most important thing is to find out where your niche might be. Property management ended up being a great niche for me because I'm great with the resident relations and creative on resolutions for maintenance and that type of stuff. So to this day, we continue to provide property management to people because we've got something valuable to share with them. And it's not the main part of our business or the only part of our business, but it's a nice supporting piece. So I think that's when I'm leading into the next part of that is you can't rely on just any one thing. I think investors that want to come in and flip properties, I think that's a great thing to do. But it's going to take more than that to sustain yourself, and that's where you got to be kind of branch out a little bit. You might flip properties, but maybe you can wholesale other properties to other flippers. Maybe you can manage renovations for other flippers if you don't have the inventory. If you're really good at finding the deals, but not so good at disposing them, you can get the deals on the contract and team up with somebody for disposal. I don't even know what word.
Disposition.
So for people, you got to hang around long enough to find out what you might be good at and build off of that a little bit without falling in some ruts. And I think that's the biggest challenge. So many people, maybe they have social anxiety or they don't necessarily put themselves out there. So, what you are successful doing doesn't necessarily mean that the next agent that comes on a team could follow the same path that you do and be successful the same way. So I think that's unique about my approach to leadership is I really try to work with our team members on a one-on-one basis to establish, what are their goals, but also what are their strengths and their weaknesses so that we can try to put them on a path that makes most sense to them. Because the most important thing about your first year or two in real estate, or talking about if you're a licensed real estate professional, is that you renew your license when it comes up. It's not how successful you were in that first year or that second year. Did you create any positive momentum or whatnot? I mean, that all counts, but what's most important is that you're still in the game at the end and you keep pushing, which is funny because my very first broker, I had reached out to him one year. This was my first year as a licensed real estate agent, and I was trying to attract some clients and get some clout in the game. And I had asked my broker, do you have any advice for me? And his big contribution to my career was, he said, just stick with it, kid. And, that led me to actually leave his brokerage because I was looking for more support. But it's funny because in hindsight, that might be one of the most important things, is that you stick with it and you just don't give up. Because to this day, we have dry spells and good spells and you got to really just stick with it. But beyond just being there, you also need an organized approach on what you're sticking with. And I think that's what we're missing with that broker at the time. But in hindsight, I always tell people that story because if there's one thing I want somebody to learn when they're new in the game is they're going to have to stick with it. And it's not going to be all beautiful. And I think that there's a reputation of real estate agents or real estate professionals in different areas, whether you're flipping, wholesaling, or you're a landlord or you're a real estate agent. I think everybody thinks that you're like amazing and everything is wonderful, and it can be, and it doesn't even take a whole lot of success to be wonderful. But it's not that case for the majority of people. So I think there's a big misconception between what's possible and what's typical, within the real estate industry, which is a whole nother lesson all of itself,
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's definitely important to find your avatar, like you were talking about, and figure out what you're good at. Because some people are more like integrators. They like to play with the tech and the programs in the background and figure out the systems and processes. And then, maybe they're a little bit introverted, so that's their niche. And then you got people that are just highly extroverted and love talking to other people, and that's what energizes them, and they're great at sales. So like it's definitely important, but it's also important, like you were saying, to test different things out and kind of fill up your tool bag with different tools and figure out what it is that you actually like. You gotta try things and stick with it. Absolutely. The other thing that you said that I wanted to add is, so the challenges, the peaks and valleys, right? So the lessons are always learned in the valleys. So it sucks. It sucks going through it, but that is where you reflect and you always come out a better person on the other end of it because you went through that crap.
Yeah.
So
You try. You're at least aware and perspective of it, for sure. And I think it's natural for us to ask ourselves, or to blame ourselves, what have we done wrong or what have we do better? And that's probably the right approach. And, something that people in real estate experience all the time. Let's talk about licensed real estate agents. Your best friend buys a house with another agent or somebody you know or you love.
Oh, that pisses me off.
I've had the closest people to me, people you just never imagine, go elsewhere at times.
Me too.
Oh, and our first instinct is like, cut those people off. Like, you don't love me, I don't love you either. That also, again, part of the patience of the game. And I want to tell you a funny little story. I had a gentleman, I'm not going to say his name, but I had a gentleman, he had reached out to me many, many years ago. He wanted to buy a home. This was licensed in Massachusetts. He ended up buying in New Hampshire. I wasn't his real estate agent, whatever had happened. And I remember he bought a house, and I felt kind of salty. I was like, we had spoken about this. I was supposed to be your guy, and I wanted to, why? But sooner or later, I said, you know what, Justin, you have to look inside of you. What have you not done to earn the trust or the confidence or the commitment or whatever it might be to this person? I'm telling you, I want to take him right off my social media at first, But through that, we learned. And I'll tell you what, you fast forward, it was probably 5 or 6 years later, this gentleman calls me back and says, hey, I want you to sell my house for me in New Hampshire, and I want to go buy another one. And this was actually what jumped me off. I said, hold on, I got to go get my real estate license in New Hampshire so I can help you. And he did. He was patient for me while I went through the test. And I had to take the test maybe 3 times. He hung out with me while I did that. And then I sold his house for him and did a phenomenal job selling his home for him. And I helped him buy another house. So we did a phenomenal job negotiating. We got him way over on his home. We got him way under on his new home that he purchased with his family. And then he actually started to pay to become a mentee of us. And he started looking to wholesale properties. He brought his cousin in to this, mentorship program with him. His cousin now works for us and is a licensed agent and selling properties to their family members, and these are the things that are pipelines that take many years sometimes to come to fruition. So this individual who I could have just short-circuited out of my life, I had hardly known them and felt like they had owed me something. But instead of cutting them out, I looked internally, and I just waited many, many years. And by continuing to foster that relationship, I think eventually they had saw that when their next opportunity came, I was the right person for them, the best person. And, that's another lesson, sometimes you're not going to get them today, but we can still might be able to earn their friends and their family's business and their trust. And you never know where these relationships can go as the years go on. So we touched earlier on, the get out of bed for customer service as being, one of our core values. Well, the other one is building simple, sustainable, and fierce systems. So as we try to lead gen and grow our business, we want to be fiercely effective. We want our systems to be sustainable and simple, because we need to be here when you need us next year, the year after that, or the year after that, the year after that. And if our processes aren't simple and sustainable and fiercely effective, we'll never still be in the game when the time comes. And that's kind of always been our philosophy for people in the property management world. If you don't need me now today, well, I'll be here when you do, and you will. And that's how it kind of works out, you know. So it's a fun process. It can certainly be humbling. When someone chooses to go with somebody else, it hurts. But really, we got to look inside and say, you know, did we fail to follow up with them? Were we not on their mind? Did they not trust us? Did they not like us? You know, and what are those things that we can continue to work on so that the next time around, we're the choice, you know? And man, that's another painful process. It's a painful world. The industry in general, it never stops either. You know, I've been in the game 14 years now, and I could say in the last, currently we have a family member that has a new construction home being built that they purchased not even 15 minutes from where I live with another. You know, so does it make Easter a little more awkward?
Yeah.
Maybe, if we're not mature ourselves, right? If we haven't been through this process and seen things like that turn out for the best, we might be quick to take it personal. But we got to remember that everybody's got their own relationships. We can't control that. Everyone's got their own perspectives, and you have to respect that while staying confident and aggressive and going for your next opportunity. You got to learn. You know, the question is, hey, what did I do? Where did things go wrong between you and I that I wasn't able to be the person that you chose to work with, so that I can know next time, you know? And that's where the growth is found rather than the destruction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes it takes a long time to figure out what that lesson is. I mean, you could have gone through several other peaks and valleys and still not knowing the lesson until finally, you know, maybe 3 or 5 years later, you look back on it and you're like, oh, that's what it was. So that particular situation happened to me not too long ago. I had a family member who knows that I'm in real estate and didn't even talk to me about buying a house. And it's like, I found out that maybe that they didn't want to mix business and family together. And I'm like, at least have a conversation with me. I could have referred you to another agent and picked up a small piece of it and not had any dealings with your transaction. And I could have made sure that you had the brightest and the best real estate agent for you that would help you get to the finish line and get you what you need. So it's definitely tough, and it still stings a little bit even to this day.
You take it personal, you know, and it's hard not to, you know, it's only natural. We're only human. But I think the key there is, you know, Jonathan, I need to do a better job of making sure that my sphere knows that even if I can't be the real estate agent, I can help connect them to the right one, and that would be important to me. I think the biggest change in like one of my biggest change in my career might be the way that I started handling relationships, where I got to a point where I've allowed myself to be real vulnerable and honest with everybody in my life. You know, there's kind of an old joke when you're in real estate, it's, you know, all conversations lead back to real estate, which is kind of true because the lead sourcing never ends. And we want to make sure that everywhere we go, people know that we're there to help them. I mean, that's like how we survive. But sometimes we don't do as good of a job letting people know that, hey, if you're moving to Illinois, I can still help you. You know, I don't know that the general public understands that real estate agents are basically like this national, international network that we can all connect with each other to help facilitate the deals and oversee certain things and make sure you can help them, right? So the biggest thing is to make sure we get ahead of that and spend time letting people know that this is an area where I can help.
Yeah, I've gotten that as well, as like, oh, well, I just thought you were a real estate agent in New Hampshire. I didn't realize that you could help me out in Texas. And it's like, yeah, like we just needed to have a little conversation, and then I could have found you the perfect agent instead of this guy that you went with who's his first year in real estate and has no idea even what a purchase and sales agreement is. Like, he doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's something we're talking about, like, it's in your, your sphere, your circle of people.
I missed that. Say it again.
I said, so this is somebody that's like in your circle of close people?
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's like to take extreme ownership of it, as we all should, is that I didn't foster that relationship properly and let them know, like, hey, I can do more than just in this state, and I can help you without even being involved in the transaction. And I'm not putting enough out on social media about it. I'm not, having the conversations when I'm face to face with these people about things. So I know that I need to do a better job on my end on this. So
That doesn't hurt any less. Yeah, it's a big challenge. Big challenge.
So we've been talking for a while, but I'm really interested in the investment side of things, and I'd like to hear, like, do you have a deal that was maybe like a real home run, your favorite deal that you've done thus far in your career that you could tell us about, and maybe give us some highlights about how it all transpired and what the numbers were, or if you had an exit, what you came out with?
Wow, geez. It's one of those things where they start to blur together over the year. But like, I love to talk to you about a thing that we got going on right now. I got a partner that for the last couple of years we've been flipping a couple of properties together, and I guess it's coming up on a year now. We had a flip in New Hampshire here that we had sold, and we were saying, hey, we want to get into some rentals. We got to buy a couple of buildings together to kind of keep this rocking and rolling. And we ended up buying 2 multifamily properties together from this one flip. We bought a 4-family and a 3-family in Manchester. And this deal is not so spectacular that it's something that nobody else could accomplish. But what it is it's so regular that it goes right under people's noses, And so I've found, and we've done this now for a couple properties and in different scenarios, but we'll talk about this one. We were getting ready to close on this flip, so we were going to have some money coming in. We had to redispose of it pretty quickly and all that type of stuff. So I started getting a habit where I'm on the MLS searching for brand new properties, first thing in the morning. I'm talking 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So first thing in the morning, last thing at night, that's perspective, okay? So I ended up running across this property on the MLS, 0 days on market. It was just listed, and basically the rents versus the purchase price seemed to match up. So I wrote these people an offer, again, 4 a.m., submitted it right to them. 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, I called them. Hey guys, saw this property, sent you over an offer. This offer should be everything you're looking for, make it real easy, give me one walkthrough, all the bells and whistles. And they had already, now at this point, started to receive other offers. But the difference was that I called and followed up with them first thing in the morning, and my offer was proficient. We had our proof of funds. We had a good timeline. We had kind of all of our ducks in a row, to where the selling agent let me know, like, hey, listen, there's actually higher offers on the table. You were so swift. You were so proficient with follow-up. We feel like you're going to follow through. The seller is ready to sell you this property. And we're like, great. That's what we love. So our first lesson was to be quick. First one there, but to be proficient when we got there with our paperwork. But here was the secret. I had asked the gentleman, hey, does your seller have any other properties that they want to sell to? And that was like the big little piece. That's where this little single became a home run, because he sent me a list of 4 other properties that the seller was getting ready to list and was ready to sell. Now they were off market. So now we had this first property under agreement, and now we had the potential for up to 4 more properties to bring under agreement with no competition. We're now the only ones that know them. And we were able to scrub that list. We ended up buying another one off that list. We wholesaled another one off the list. So we ended up moving 3 properties out of this guy's 5 available. And the other 2, the numbers just didn't make sense. They were different. They were more of like a retail buyer deal. But that was kind of the big lesson, the big success. It's like, hey, what else do you have? And the key is that's the relationship in the business. I don't think people ask that question enough. What else can we do together? How can we build off this momentum that we have together? Matter of fact, I've spoken to that gentleman recently about maybe some other future properties that might come up. But I wanted to paint the story a little bit, because if I back up, I had told you I had wholesaled one of those properties off the list to a gentleman. And we wholesaled that list really to another real estate agent's client from another brokerage. Just somebody that we had known who was shopping around these other properties we thought were a good deal. Somebody said, hey, I have a client that might be interested. And that's wonderful. So we were able to wholesale another deal, make something out of nothing. But the cool thing is now that agent just circled back here, and right now, currently, we have a 4-family in Nashua under agreement that real estate agent brought to our attention off market. So the avalanche or the domino effect between these little things that might make a difference can have a profound effect. And that's what I find most exciting about the deals, is how to link them together and gain momentum. And they always talk about momentum. Well, what does that mean? Just because we were able to secure success here, that doesn't necessarily correlate to the next opportunity, but sometimes it does. And the secret piece to that is making sure we're following up on those relationships and asking the questions and letting people know how important it is to us to be able to pursue these avenues, and one deal leads to another. So buying this one property, or attempting to buy this one property with an offer at 4:00 in the morning on day 0, has led to 3 properties that we'll own by the time this transaction closes, plus another wholesale. And now this agent's all excited. He says, hey, we got to keep it up. We've done a deal now 2 springs in a row. Can we do 2 this year? And the answer's like, yes. We want to be the first person on your mind. And I want you to be somebody on my mind too when the opportunities come. Let's know what works so that when the opportunities come, we can put them in front of each other,
Absolutely. That's a gold nugget right there.
Yeah. So and to answer your question, just to sum it all up, it's not about the deal, but it's about the process and how you approach those and squeezing them out. Because you never know when that opportunity is going to come. I'm not up at 3:30 in the morning every day looking at the MLS. But when my time is right and I know that I'm in the market, sometimes we got to make those little extra differences. And maybe it's just a matter of not going to bed when the opportunity presents itself and say, hey, I'm on this grind. Let me give it a little bit of effort. All right. And I don't think that everybody needs to be up at 3:30 in the morning to be successful. But in a competitive market, sometimes you have to be. Because if I had found that deal at 12 in the afternoon and sent the deal, he had already had multiple offers. We wouldn't have had the same advantage,
Yeah, sometimes you just have to know when to hit the gas.
You just got to be a little lucky, too. I think if you rely on your intuition in it, in your mind, when you've done what you can do. And in your mind, when there's more to push. And I think sometimes we've got to just listen to ourselves, too. Because sometimes you need to go get yourself a good night's sleep. Sometimes you got to get yourself out of bed early and get on to something. And having the discipline or the awareness to pay attention to that, I don't think can be understated. Because it takes a little bit of luck. My old partner, Ron, that created the Apollo spacesuit, he had told me, in his life and his experience, it took a little bit of luck. He was in the right room, and then something drastically went wrong. So when he got the chief engineer spot to develop that original spacesuit, he was only a person on the project. And the gentleman that was in charge had happened to die in a motorcycle accident, like the same weekend that they got the contract to build the spacesuit. So back then they didn't have text message and emails and all that stuff. So they called everyone to the office Monday morning for a meeting, and they told them that, their director had just passed away in a tragic motorcycle accident. And he ended up becoming, because he knew the project better than anybody, he ended up becoming the chief engineer. So he talks about it take a little bit of luck, even an unfortunate stroke of luck, to put him in this position. However, he had to be prepared for that luck to pounce on it when it came. And that any industry, anything that's worthwhile to pursue, you need to be prepared for when your luck comes and you have an opportunity to pounce on it. And you could turn that into sports too, and you got to be really good to get to the end of the game where you get a little lucky.
So going back a little bit, you had mentioned that the numbers made sense for rent opposed to what the purchase price was on this. Let's just get a little bit into the details here. Like, what are you using for? Did you use like a napkin underwrite on this, a 1% rule, or how did you know that those numbers made sense to you?
You know what? I say it all with a grain of salt. Today's market, things are changing so much that some of our traditional rule of thumbs don't always work the way they do. But there are many rules of thumbs out there that you can try to identify as a starting place to say, hey, maybe I should look at this. So in that particular transaction, it was the 1% rule. And you just mentioned, now, not everybody might know what the 1% rule is. So the 1% rule is when your monthly rent for property equals 1% of the purchase price. And historically, that's been a safe figure to say that you're going to be okay. You know, if you're buying a property with a 1% rule, you're usually going to be okay. But you know what? In today's marketplace, that's not always the case. Interest rates are in the sevens. I had an investor client make an offer that's outstanding right now, and his mortgage proposal is for an 8.1%. We just had one of the biggest jumps since 2022 last week. Hopefully they'll stabilize. So those interest rates, along with climbing prices and inflation, a lot of times is making that 1% rule obsolete. So I want to, gauge anybody to be careful when looking at that, because another thing that I've learned is it's always property specific. Okay, if you're buying a property, if you're flipping it, if you're managing it, the question is always, how does this one work? And what are the ins and the outs and the key points? Sometimes you're buying a property for short-term capital gain. Sometimes you're looking for long-term equity growth, or somewhere in the middle. So depending on your exit strategy and your financing ability, you got to look at every property just a little bit different. That one was a 1% rule. They were asking $640. It rented for $6,400 per month, and we saw an opportunity to increase the rents. So in that particular building, we've had it now for June will be 1 year. We're in April, so we're about 10 months in. We've turned over 3 of the 4 apartments. One went from $1,450 a month in rent up to $1,753. One went from $1,600 to $1,753, and one went from $1,900 to $2,600. So the way we are approaching this particular deal is we're looking at about a 2-year refinance period, where we have a 2-year early payment penalty on the property. We're hoping that interest rates will be something better. I think we're locked in at like a 6.7 or something for 30 years, which is a wonderful place to be with a rental property. And we've been able to increase those rents. So by being able to increase them, we believe that, hypothetically speaking, we're increasing our equity too. And the idea is that a few years down the line, we may be able to refinance, pull our original investment back, and be left with the property. Or we'll sell it, or we'll condo it, or we've got multiple, potential exit strategies, which you should always have. And I've learned that also the hard way.
Yeah, you've always got to have a backup plan. So how many doors are you sitting on now, Juztin?
Sitting on 19 that I personally own, along with partners across a handful of different buildings. So we got a 9-unit mixed-use commercial building, a couple 3 families, a 4 family, and then we've got 4 more units on the contract as of yesterday. So
congrats.
Weeks from now we'll be at 23. Thank you.
Very nice. So I love what you're doing with your brokerage, Juztin, and it's why that I stuck with you. And I mean, let's get to the story of why I even came with you too. So I was with Keller Williams and brand new agent, and it was absolutely miserable. I wasn't getting any help. I was getting all this like training, right? But all these systems that they were using and all these, different things were that they had fees that they just kept tacking on every month. So I was just hemorrhaging money and getting nowhere, no like one-on-one mentorship or anything like that. They had promised me leads at one point, and I never got a single lead. And then Juztin, I found on Facebook, and I figured out that, he was doing the thing, doing investments, and owned a brokerage. And to boot, he's a Freemason, so he's a brother of mine. And I was like, all right, this is like just meant to be. And then I reached out to him, and we had some conversations, and I ended up making the switch, and he gave me my first deal. Like, he actually gave me a lead. I was shocked as all heck, because I'm like, what do I do with this? Everyone has been telling me that I'm going to have leads, and I'm going to do this real estate thing, and it's all been for naught until now. So I appreciate you. I appreciate that you're willing to do things creatively, that you're not like, and that's where you stand apart too, is a lot of other brokerages are so afraid to do anything other than conventional real estate, but you're an investor and you're a broker. So you understand wholesaling, you understand creative financing and things like that, and you're not afraid to use different tools to get deals across the finish line. And I think that is phenomenal. I think that it's probably 1% of the brokerages that are even out there that are doing that. So I think that it sets you apart. And even further than that is, I want you to tell our audience what you're doing for real estate agents, because really the structure that you have makes it possible for agents to become successful. And in Keller Williams, they took a big chunk of the commission, like it was like a 40-60 split or something like that. Does that sound right to you? It was a while ago, but...
Well, they have different types of splits, and depends. They'll negotiate it, and they squeeze you when they're buying you the leads, all that type of stuff. And that goes back to my experience with brokerages. So I told you a little bit earlier how, like, my first broker, they gave me a great split. It was like very straightforward, but there was little to no support, right? His big advice was stick with it. Well, then when I had moved on from there, I had gone to like one of the national franchise brands that, we're going to give you a bigger split. We're going to give you all these tools. We're going to give these mentoring. You're going to give you mentoring. You're going to sell more homes because you have our tag in your email, and I bought that Kool-Aid too. And it wasn't until I closed my first deal with that transaction or with that franchise where I learned the magic phrase off the top fees, right? Where I learned, we'll give you X split, but it's after a franchise fee and after a marketing fee and after our transaction fee and blah, 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 blah. And I learned that, wow, this greater split is actually a lower split than what I was used to. But they did have some tools. Some were useful. They did have some coaching that I could kind of get into and stuff, which was good stuff. But then the back-end structure just never really sat well with me. I felt like they were basically, the word is greed. So when we built out Three Hills in our plan, we wanted to make sure that we kind of married the best of both worlds, where we give agents a very advantageous, easy to understand commission structure. But then we try to back them up with the most critical tools that they can actually use to drive business. Simple, sustainable, fierce tools. And we try to wrap that all up with the personal broker support. I can't tell you how often I'm talking to a real estate agent that's out there and they haven't spoken to their broker ever, or in a very long time. Or if they're trying to get help, they can't necessarily get it. If they call them on a Saturday, they get a call back on a Monday. And that's what I have to bring to the table, is passionate broker support. So our system is real simple. We give people straightforward cuts, no monthly fees. We give them very low caps so they can actually get to the point for rocket fuel in their business. And our structure is set up so if you sell even just a couple homes a year, you're going to cap out. And what that means is that we stop taking a share. We stop sharing in your commission splits, and you get to keep 100% of them for the rest of the year. And what we've learned is that when we get an agent into that capped out zone, it's like rocket fuel to their business. Because the difference between 80% of your commissions and 100% of your commission is pretty drastic, especially when you can now coach these people to take that extra 20% and reinvest it into their business. Almost all of our agents now, they have their own brands, their own like logos. They're building their own names in the business. And they're doing that powered through our systems and our support and all those things. So for the agents that come with us, like you, we've been on the phone late at night many times because we want to make sure that you guys are prepared. And by being there and providing that passion and support, I found is probably more important than any split, okay? Because no matter what your split is, no matter what your fees are, all that stuff, I think the most important thing is that you're doing good business. So you got to be working with people that can help you do that business. And, a couple good sales will make a lot of problems go away. So like when you joined, we talked about luck, it was preparation, you were out there. It was lucky for us too, because we were out there reaching and we found you and was able to bring you to our team. And then we had a customer that needed to be serviced. And we were lucky to have you there to serve. Right. So that's where that preparation meets the luck. And the same thing for your perspective, Jonathan. You had reached out to me originally, and we went out and we sat at a very nice restaurant. We talked about it. You showed up with your Keller Williams shirt, remember? But through all of that preparation, you found yourself in the position to luck into your first lead, right? And that's a lot about what the game is. So if there's anything we got to do is we got to get up and do the thing to be lucky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it actually goes back to, and you mentioned this a couple of times throughout our conversation, is like the reason why I say at the beginning of every show is like, hey, they're dreamers and doers, is because a lot of people, like, they want that easy button. They'll buy the $50,000 course, whatever it is. They're the dreamers. They're not taking the action, and that's really what it's about. Is you have to take action. If you're not doing anything, you're never going to get the outcome that you want. You can dream about it all you want, but it's never coming to you until you pull the trigger, and probably numerous times over. I mean, you've got to expend a few magazines before you hit the target the first time.
Yeah, it's like the biggest thing. And I try to tell that to our team. It's when you feel stuck, it's call me. Hey, Justin, I got 2 hours in my day. What's the best thing I could do? When I don't have the answer, is there a place I can turn to find the answer? And I think that's a difference for a lot of people, because you got to get up there and do it. It's really easy to start scrolling on our phones and get lost or distracted and let these little increments of time pass us by. They could be the difference maker, And the one thing about real estate is it really doesn't take a whole lot of success. You can get lucky once or twice and change the whole trajectory of your career. Matter of fact, I think that's how it works for most people. I think there's usually a breakthrough deal somewhere along the line that makes a difference for most people.
Absolutely, brother. All right, we're getting towards the end here, but I just have a couple of questions for you, and we'll wrap it up. So I always ask about books. Tell me about some books that you've read that have been wow, say the word for me. It's influential. Thank you.
Yeah, and I had a couple books that have been really profound on me, and I almost feel like it's pretty typical. But when I started studying real estate, the first thing I had to learn is that I was wired wrong. I was wired in a place of scarcity where are we going to get the money? Or where do I get the know-how? How do I find the properties? And a lot of that started to change for me when I first watched, it was on Netflix at the time, The Secret. And I know that's kind of cliche, and that's kind of become like this popular place. But like, I joke you not, going back to 2011, I was probably watching The Secret 4 nights a week, 5 nights a week on Netflix. I mean, over and over and over again. And what I learned is that this was just like some fluffy thing that caught people's attention, but it was just the surface of something that was much, much deeper. And that got me going down the path to studying Napoleon Hill's work. Obviously, I think a lot of people know Think and Grow Rich, which is a book I've listened to on audio many, many times. Matter of fact, every January, I put it on again, and I listen to a chapter a day throughout the course of January. But he's also got some other great work. Outwitting the Devil is a phenomenal book that also comes from Napoleon Hill's teachings, which is something I lean back. And the premise of this book is Outwitting the Devil is an acknowledgement. So you and I have developed a relationship, and I could, in my own mind's mind, anticipate how you might react or think or advise me on any particular subject that we might have talked about in the past. So in Outwitting the Devil, Napoleon Hill had a mastermind alliance of people that he had met in his life. Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, and these other influential to him people that helped him learn. And when he would come to a point in time where he had to consider or he had to make decisions in his career, he would sit down in his own mind and have a conference with these people. And he would do it so often, they would each develop almost their own personalities in his mind. Henry Ford might, be 3 minutes early every day with black coffee at their meetings in the mind. But what he was able to do is tap into the advice and the knowledge and experience that he already knew they would give in these different scenarios, right? We all know if we go to our mom with a problem, what she's going to say about it, right? So this book explored the psychological effect of taking advantage of those experiences, even when we don't have those people at our own hand. And that's something I've done many times in my career. I kind of have my own little panel of advisors and mentors throughout the course of my life that when we get to certain things, I will sit there and ask myself, what would this person say? And some of these people I've met and some of them I haven't.
Absolutely. Don't forget Abe Lincoln sat at that table in his mind as well.
Is that far? I see. I know.
So I've read that book as well as his previous book, which was, I believe, The Laws of Success. And I like that one a little bit better.
Sure. Yeah. Laws of Success was set up almost like a school arithmetic lesson. And then Brokerage is where they took that lesson and they had, collaborated it into more of a drawn out, told story. And Think and Grow Rich has been the foundation of probably every motivational speaker, development guru ever since, I'm sure.
Yeah. But if you look on Wikipedia, they talk about how he's like this big scammer or whatever, and they just defame him. And it's absolutely absurd in my mind because I love the book. Whether or not he did these things that they're saying on there or not, he brought a lot of value to a lot of people with that book.
Yeah. Well, I think it's worth mentioning, just while we're on the topic, another book by the late Bob Proctor was Born Rich. And Bob Proctor, this is going back to the 80s now. Bob Proctor also created a seminar around the Born Rich book. And the premise of this book was that you're born rich with all the resources and everything that you need in your life to prosper. But that was also, I think, that as I started to mature, Bob Proctor at the time was alive, and he became like a mentor that I could look through the internet every day. And I mean, I studied his Born Rich program. I have studied his Born Rich program for probably about 13 years now and continue to do so on a regular basis.
So going back again, the law of attraction is very real. The biggest thing is use it, but you also have to take the action. So you can't just dream about it, right? Is like what I was talking about before.
Yeah, I think that's the distinction between, those that saw the Secret documentary on video to when you start to dive into it. And another great book is Psycho-Cybernetics.
Yep.
That book starts to touch base on the human element, and why can these large corporations say, hey, if you sell X amount of our products, we'll send you to Aruba next year. But they know this year how many rooms to book for the trip. And so you start to learn that this stuff goes a lot deeper. And there are definitely natural laws that are all addressing it. But yeah, I think the biggest mistake that the Secret documentary made is it led people to believe that they could just wish, and things would appear. And maybe they didn't make the connection that the wish is to inspire the thought, which isn't to inspire the action in faith.
Great stuff, brother. So we're wrapping it up now. Tell us where we can find more about you and how we can connect with you if we want to reach out and do business with you, or maybe jump on Three Hills Real Estate Services service as an agent or what have you.
Yeah, listen, my favorite place to connect with anybody is on Facebook. Okay, my name's Juztin Brown, Juztin with a Z, Juztin, middle initial W, last name Brown. But quite honestly, you can reach me on my cell phone anytime, 617-461-6511. Our website is threehillsres.com. So you reach me by any platform, and we'll make sure that we get you connected with the entire team any way that we can, and we love to collaborate. We're big on collaboration over competition. So we really want to work with everybody. Sometimes we can able to help somebody by bringing them onto our team, but sometimes we can collaborate without that because that's just not the right way always. You had talked about tools and tool belts and stuff, and that's what I preach a lot is we're like trades, and we have our own tool belt, and we have all these different tools on how we can service different scenarios in real estate. And that might be a traditional brokerage sale or a buyer, or it might be being a landlord or a flip or a wholesaler. The thing is purchasing a property with creative financing. We want to stack our people's tool belts up so they got the right tool for the job no matter what it is.
And if you need hard money or gap funding, that I'm the guy that you need to talk to, right?
Right. The creative finance is the way to go, so the way that you're able to step in and help investors, make these things happen, when you're proving to them that they do have the money and that they can accomplish these big things, and you're providing them a service they need in order to kind of get their careers off the ground, right? So in some cases, Jonathan, you are that lucky person that investors meet.
All right, brother. Thanks again. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you coming on. And that's it. So, all right, guys. Thanks for watching this episode of The Founder's Journey. If you are intrigued about working with one of the smallest percentages of brokers that work with creative finance deals, reach out to me or Justin. All of our contact information is in the description below. If you're looking for funding on your next fix and flip or wholesale deal, you already know where to find me. Our website is www.jkcreativesystems.com, all one word. Hey, you. Yes, you. I want to hear from you. Leave a comment on this video. I want to hear what you took away from this interview and also what you'd like to see in future episodes. I respond to every comment on these videos. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you haven't done so already, destroy that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so that you get notified about my future content. And if you truly didn't like this video, you're always welcome to hit the dislike button twice. Well, that's all for now. I'll see you guys on the next leg of the journey.